They didn't leave a note, no goodbye, no warning. Just me, my daughter, and the snow. They packed her suitcase without her coat, took my phone charger, locked the front door, then drove off like we were nothing but yesterday's problem. It was supposed to be a family gathering. But by dawn, we were alone. And it wasn't an accident. It was a plan. They thought the snow would finish what their silence started, but we didn't die. We didn't disappear. And when they came back days later, smiling like we were all supposed to laugh and forget, I looked them straight in the eye. And for the first time in my life, I said no. My name is Rhea Marlowe. I'm 33 years old. And if you've ever been betrayed by the people who were supposed to protect you, then maybe you'll understand what I'm about to tell you. What would you do if your own family left you to die and came back asking for help? Tell me where you're listening from, and if this story reminds you of someone. Stay. Because the coldest thing in this story wasn't the snow. The house smelled like cinnamon ham and rosemary potatoes. It was supposed to smell like comfort, like celebration. But standing at the kitchen counter, hands deep in mashed potatoes, I felt more like a hired cook than a wife, than a sister. The laughter from the living room spilled in waves, loud, warm, careless. But it never seemed to reach me. Behind me, the oven ticked softly, keeping the ham warm. I'd set the table hours ago, 8 places. But when I came to take my seat, there were only 7. No one said a word. I stood holding my plate in silence, watching snow dance across the back porch light. Behind me, footsteps. Heels on tile. Still in here. Her voice, calm, casual, cold. Vivian. My sister. 3 years older. Always louder, always sharper. You really botched this parenting thing, she said. Fingers tapping a wine glass like she was keeping time with my failures. Poor Maisie. She deserves better. I didn't turn around, didn't answer, not because I didn't have words, but because I knew she'd never hear them anyway. Then Garrett walked in, my husband. Though it hadn't felt like that in months. He smiled, not at me, at her, placed a kiss on Vivian's cheek like it meant nothing, then left, just like that. I stood still, towel in hand, while my chest burned. They laughed in the next room, the sound of clinking glasses, old family songs. A party I used to be invited to. Now I just cleaned up after it. I rinsed a plate, and that's when I heard them. Voices, not loud, but low, intentional. Just past the cracked pantry door. If we drive far enough north, the snow will do it, Garrett murmured. I froze. Vivian's reply was soft. She's just in the way. We'll say she left, ran off. She's done it before. The plate slipped in my hand, but I caught it, quietly. They left the room, their voices faded, but mine stayed, rattling around my ribs like it was looking for somewhere safe to land. I didn't cry. Crying makes it real, and I wasn't ready for it to be real. Not yet. So I finished the dishes, packed leftovers into foil, and when the house quieted, I put Maisie to bed, brushed her hair, zipped her hoodie, tucked her under 2 blankets. She asked why we were going to sleep so early. I said the snow was coming, that we needed rest. But what I needed was silence, to think, to plan, and to admit to myself finally that something far colder than winter had already moved into this house. And it wore the faces of the people I once trusted most. I must have dozed off by the window. I woke with my cheek pressed against the glass, the sky outside pale and heavy with snow. No smell of coffee, no clinking pans, no footsteps upstairs. I sat up fast. The clock read 6:22. Maisie. I ran down the stairs barefoot, calling her name. The house was silent. Fireplace cold. Coats gone. So was Garrett's truck. Then I saw it. A crumpled receipt on the kitchen counter, something scribbled in Garrett's handwriting. We thought you'd follow. No room. No room. I don't remember dropping the note. Just the sound of it fluttering to the floor. A small voice came from under the table. Mommy Maisie was curled up tight, socks wet, holding a throw pillow to her chest. Tears streaked her cheeks. They left, she whispered. Didn't they? I nodded slowly, pulled her into my arms, wrapped her cold little body against mine. It's just us now, baby. I didn't wait, didn't cry, didn't scream. There wasn't time. I found a grocery bag and packed what I could, her inhaler, a granola bar, half a bottle of water, crayons, and her sketch pad, a kitchen knife in my coat pocket. I dressed her in layers, 2 sweaters, a scarf, one of Garrett's old jackets. The sleeves dangled past her fingers. I took one deep breath and stepped outside. The cold hit like betrayal. The wind cut through my coat, howling down from the hills. Snow reached up to Maisie's knees. I had to carry her. "We're going to the old cabin," I told her, "the one Grandpa used to take us to." She nodded against my shoulder. 3 miles, through forest, in a snowstorm. Every step was war. Snow clung to my boots, heavy and wet. My arms burned from her weight, my hands numb. Every 100 steps I whispered the same lie. Almost there. There were no tracks, no path, only white and silence. Then a sound, not wind, whimpering. Maisie's fingers dug into my coat. My hands hurt. We ducked under an old pine. Not shelter, but enough to rest. I reached for her granola bar and found something else in my pocket. A folded photo. Our wedding. Only the bottom half survived. My face gone. Garrett's blackened blur. Maisie's tiny figure in her flower girl dress clinging to my legs still visible. "They tried to erase us," I whispered. I tore it, let the pieces scatter in the snow, and kept walking. But my legs, they didn't want to move anymore. I forced them to. 1 step, then another, and then I saw it. Not snow, not shadow. Eyes. A wolf. 10 yards away, ribs visible through fur. It didn't growl, didn't run. It watched. I shifted Maisie behind me. "Baby, listen to me," I said, voice low. "If it comes at us, you run. You don't look back." "Got it," she nodded. Lips trembling. I reached for the knife. My fingers shook too much. The wolf lowered its head. 1 step closer, then another. Then crack. The wolf collapsed. A gunshot. The sound echoed through the trees. I turned. A man stood at the tree line. Heavy coat, rifle lowered, face shadowed by a wide-brim hat. He didn't speak, didn't move, just watched. My knees gave out. I dropped to the snow, still holding Maisie. "Please," I whispered. "Help her." Before the world turned white again, the last thing I saw were his boots crunching closer. I woke to warmth. The smell hit first. Not strong, gentle. Something simmering. Broth, maybe. Then came the dry heat from a nearby fire. The crackle soft and steady. My fingers twitched under a thick wool blanket. Maisie's breathing steady beside me, her cheeks no longer pale, her lips no longer blue. She looked like a child again, not a survivor. I turned slowly. Near the fire sat the man, our rescuer. Back turned, stirring a pot over the flames. He moved slowly, but not weak. Intentional, controlled. He didn't look up. "I made broth," he said, voice low, almost gravel. "Nothing fancy. Beans, carrots, some onion." I didn't answer, just nodded. It was the first kindness I'd heard in days, and I wasn't sure I remembered how to receive it. He didn't hand me the bowl. He set it nearby, then stepped back. Didn't ask my name, didn't ask why I was half frozen carrying a child. Later I learned his name was Elias, but for now, he was just the man who didn't look away. Maisie stirred. Elias crouched, ladled half the broth into a smaller tin, and gently placed it beside her. Didn't touch her, didn't speak, just stepped back to the fire. Maisie blinked, saw him tensed. But she didn't cry. She looked at me. I smiled barely. She picked up the spoon. I held the blanket tighter. Let the warmth finally start to sink in. That afternoon, as the snow softened outside, I stitched the rip in Maisie's sleeve. Found an old sewing kit tucked in a wooden crate. My fingers remembered how tight, precise, like they used to when money was too short for new coats. Elias carved wood by the window. Not fast, not distracted. Just quiet. At one point he spoke, not looking up. "You ever seen a sparrow up close?" I blinked. "No, not really." He turned the carving slowly in his palm. "They're small, brown, ordinary. People ignore them, but they don't migrate. They stay, even in the cold." Then he handed it to me. A small wooden sparrow, wings folded, rough but beautiful. He didn't say more. Just went back outside chopping firewood in silence. I stared at the bird for a long time. And for reasons I didn't fully understand, my throat tightened. That night, Maisie slept curled beside me, her arms around the tin bowl. The firelight flickered against the cabin walls. Elias brushed snow off his shoulders, set down a small flashlight. "In case she wakes up scared," he said simply. Maisie took it, whispered, "Thank you." He nodded once, walked away again, like it was nothing. But it wasn't nothing. Not to me. Later, the wind moaned through the wooden planks. I got up quietly, looking for another blanket. Opened a drawer by Elias's cot and found letters, tied in a blue ribbon, old, frayed, sunburned. One was already open, crooked handwriting written with a shaking hand. "If you find this, I hope you made it through the winter." I sat down, read every word. I tried to be useful enough to be kept. I thought if I did more, I'd matter. But some people don't want you strong. They want you silent. Tears fell before I realized I was crying. Whoever she was, she knew. The ache of staying too long in a house where you're never safe. The math of making yourself smaller to be tolerated. I closed the drawer. Elias stood at the doorway. He didn't ask, he saw, and that was enough. Later, I found my old satchel shoved under a bench. Inside, papers, 3 documents. A quitclaim deed, my name scratched off the house. A custody affidavit surrendering rights to Maisie. And a handwritten note in Garrett's blocky scrawl, "Don't make this harder than it needs to be." My signature, forged. But perfect. It wasn't abandonment, it was erasure. Planned like a business deal. I sat on the floor, folder in hand, staring at the sparrow Elias carved. Everything they took. Everything they thought I'd never live long enough to reclaim. And for the first time, I felt something colder than snow. Resolve. The papers felt heavier than wood or stone. I didn't scream, didn't throw them. I held them close like something dead you still can't let go of. At the bottom of the folder was my name, in black ink, on 3 different legal forms. It was my handwriting. Almost. Almost was all they needed. I reached for the old rotary phone mounted near the cabin door. Elias had pointed it out earlier. Said it still worked. Landline. No signal needed. I dialed the number from the back of a wrinkled flyer I'd found in my wallet. Legal Aid Services, Clearwater County. A woman answered on the second ring. Her voice was calm, clipped, like she'd heard every kind of panic before. "Legal Aid Services, this is Dana. How can I help you?" I hesitated. My voice cracked. I found documents, a deed, a custody affidavit. They're signed, dated, notarized, but I didn't sign them. She asked for details, names, dates, locations. While she typed, I stared at the papers like they might vanish if I blinked too hard. Finally, she said, "They were filed last month. Electronically. Everything checks out." "No," I whispered. "That's not possible. I didn't authorize anything. I didn't surrender anything." Another pause. "Ma'am, the signatures match your legal file. We have time-stamped copies from the system." The wall behind me blurred. My legs folded. I slid to the floor. "Is there anything I can do?" Her tone softened, but only slightly. "That depends. Do you have proof of forgery, identity theft?" I looked again. The documents were precise. My name spelled right. My signature, too perfect. "No," I said. "I don't." She paused. "I'm sorry," then the line went dead. I sat in that silence for a long time. Outside, the wind howled, but it couldn't match the noise in my head. Eventually, I curled forward, a folder pressed to my knees. And that's when I felt it. The carved sparrow, left beside me by Maisie last night, still warm from where she'd held it. I clutched it like it might give me breath. The door creaked. Elias stepped in. Snow dusted his shoulders. He saw the folder, saw my hands trembling. He didn't speak, didn't touch me. He knelt down beside me and placed a second bird next to the first, smaller, sharper, different. Then he walked to the fire. No explanation, no story, just presence. That night I barely ate, didn't move much, didn't cry either, but my chest ached with something new. Not grief, not pain, direction. And that direction had a name. Truth. Later, as Elias chopped more wood under the moonlight, I sat by the fire and opened my phone. 22% battery. Still no signal. But when I scrolled through old messages, one voice memo auto-played. Vivian's voice, clear, casual, cruel. She's always been this weak. Mom should have let her go years ago. My chest went hollow. It wasn't the insult that broke me. It was the confirmation. Every look, every dismissal. Every time I was cut out of the table. The card without a gift. The dish without a plate. It had always been intentional. I dropped the phone. And this time I cried. Not silent tears into a pillow. No. This cry came from somewhere older, deeper. From the little girl who thought she could earn love. From the woman who'd let them chip her down into quiet. Elias came in, saw me shaking. He didn't ask. He placed a small log onto the fire and walked away. And that was the kindest thing anyone had ever done. I wiped my face, my voice shook. But it formed words, never again. Not because I wanted revenge, not even because I hated them. But because once someone calls your silence a weakness, you start hearing every echo you've swallowed. The next morning, I made a plan. I opened my notebook, listed every date I could remember, every receipt, every email, every moment. I called Dana back, told her I might have audio proof. She paused. "You do, yes," I said. "And I want to file." Elias handed me a pencil. Didn't say a word, but the look in his eyes told me one thing. They didn't think you'd live long enough to ask for it back, but I had, and I would. The sun hadn't warmed the cabin yet. When I heard it, the slow, deliberate crunch of tires on gravel. No one delivers this far into the mountains, unless they know exactly where they're going. I walked to the front window, just cracked it open. Silver SUV. Familiar, too familiar. The passenger door opened first. Vivian stepped out in suede boots and sunglasses like it was a fall brunch instead of midwinter reckoning. Garrett followed, hands in his coat pockets, expression casual, too casual. They were smiling, like none of it happened, like the blizzard was a scheduling error. Vivian waved. "We figured you might still be here." I didn't wave back. I stepped out onto the porch. No coat, no smile, just one hand gripped on the railing, not for balance, but to remind myself not to use it as a weapon. "We just wanted to talk," Garrett added, his voice oily rehearsed. Vivian started up the steps. "I brought you some of that chamomile tea you like. From Trader Joe's." I didn't move. "You left us in a storm," I said. Vivian blinked. "We thought you'd catch up. Honestly, we thought you were heading to Aunt Jean's." Garrett shrugged. "You've always been good at finding your way out of things." I didn't flinch. "No, you didn't think I'd survive." Then I heard the screen door behind me creak open. Maisie peeked out, spotted them, and instantly stepped back, her hands gripping the hem of my sweater like the porch was the last safe ground on earth. Vivian bent down slightly, her voice all syrup and lies. "Sweetheart, don't you remember, Auntie Vivian? We used to braid your hair." Maisie's voice was quiet but sharp. "You made Mom cry." Vivian froze. The smile cracked. Garrett stepped forward, pulled a manila folder from his coat. "There's a new deed," he said. "We figured it's only fair if we all sign again. Split things evenly. Everyone walks away clean." He extended it like a peace offering, like ink could fix frostbite. I opened the folder. Flip, flip, flip. Legal manipulation in bold font. Loopholes, new clauses. Control dressed in compromise. Vivian said calmly, "You were never owed anything, Rhea. You were just squatting on his name." I didn't answer. I turned, saw the fire crackling behind me, and without a word I tossed the folder in. It caught instantly, the edges curled, blackened. Vivian gasped. "Rhea." "That was the you should have made a copy," I said. Behind me the cabin door opened again. Elias stepped out. He didn't speak, didn't threaten, but he stood tall, still, unmoving, like a tree you couldn't cut down. Garrett's eyes landed on him, then shifted to me, then back to the burning folder. Something shifted in his jaw. He saw it. He saw that I wasn't afraid anymore, and that I wasn't alone. I stepped forward, just enough. "You can either walk away," I said, "or freeze." No one moved, not for a long time. Eventually they left, not loudly, not storming, just quietly. Like cowards do when they realize the door they slammed shut didn't lock behind them. I didn't expect them to give up. I knew better. I expected court, lawyers, more lies on letterhead, And I was ready. Early one morning, Elias pulled the truck up to the courthouse. Sunlight glinted off the frost on the stairs. Maisie slept curled in the back seat. I brushed her bangs aside, kissed her forehead, then stepped out. My boots hit the gravel firm. No shaking hands this time. No hoping they'd change. Inside, the air smelled like pine cleaner and stale paper. A woman behind the desk looked up. "Name Rhea Marlowe," I said. "I have a filing. Custody dispute. Property fraud." She nodded. "Courtroom 3. Judge Mason." In the gallery, Garrett sat beside his lawyer. Vivian wore ivory like she thought dressing like peace would make her less of a war. Maisie sat beside Elias, her small hand wrapped around the flashlight he gave her. Still working, still glowing, they called my name. I stood, voice steady, facts clean. I confirmed my name, my address, my claim. Then I reached into my coat pocket. "I'd like to submit an audio recording." Judge raised a brow. "Proceed." I tapped play. Vivian's voice echoed across the courtroom. "We'll say she signed it. She's too broken to remember." Gasps. Silence. Then Garrett's lawyer stood mouth open, then sat again. Judge leaned forward. "Is this your voice, Ms. Marlowe?" Vivian blinked, opened her mouth, closed it. "I'll take that as a yes. We didn't win everything that day, but we stopped their game. Dead, cold, clean. We didn't celebrate. There wasn't a parade. No dramatic music, just stillness. The kind that comes after the avalanche stops. We stayed in the cabin. Maisie slept beside the fireplace, her little flashlight resting near her cheek, still glowing, still hers. I didn't tell her everything. Not yet. She deserved more childhood before she understood what people are capable of. Instead, I folded the final piece of our wedding photo, the one with only her face left. This time, I didn't hesitate. I fed it to the fire. Across the room, Elias didn't speak, but I didn't need him to. That night, I stood on the porch. Snow melted in ribbons across the yard. And for the first time, the air didn't bite. Later that week, a letter arrived. Thick paper, official seal. Garrett's lawyer's name printed at the top. Apologies vague and bloodless. A suggestion to revisit custody now that emotions had settled. They even used the word collaborate. I laughed, quietly, like someone who finally understands the joke. "You don't revisit what you abandoned in a snowstorm." I folded the letter. Twice. Left it on the porch railing. Let the wind decide what to do with it. Then I wrote a letter of my own. No rage, no long story. Just a clean copy of the judge's ruling. No return address, no note. Let them open it in silence. Let them read the final verdict the way I used to read the lies alone. In cold light. That afternoon, Elias handed me a new carving. Smaller, sharper, not a sparrow. "A hawk," he said simply. "She's not hiding anymore." I set it on the mantel next to the sparrows. Past, present, becoming. That evening, as the stew simmered and Maisie hummed softly at my feet, the door creaked. Elias stood there. He didn't knock, but he waited. That was the difference. I walked to the door, opened it all the way. "Come in," I said. "You're home." They left me to die, but I didn't. They erased me on paper, but I carved myself back one breath, one step, one no at a time. Healing doesn't shout. Sometimes it just opens the door and decides who gets to walk through it. What did you think of this story? If you've ever been left behind, forgotten, betrayed, or erased, then maybe you saw a part of yourself in Rhea. Maybe you've stood in the snow holding silence in your mouth like it was survival. Maybe you know exactly what it feels like to finally say no and mean it. Rhea didn't get revenge by yelling. She didn't burn bridges out of anger. She built a new path one her daughter could walk barefoot on without fear. Sometimes power isn't in the loudest voice. It's in the quiet decision to stay standing. So tell me, if you were in Rhea's place, would you have opened the door? Would you have forgiven them or let the silence answer for you? Let me know where you're listening from in the comments. And if you believe Rhea made the right call, vote number 1. If you think there's a better ending, vote number 9 and tell me why. Don't forget to subscribe to EN Reddit Story for more stories that hit deep every single day. Your support keeps these voices alive.